The moon hung low in the velvet sky, casting a silver glow over the sleeping world. Somewhere in the quiet spaces between the trees, across mountain tops, and over the wide, rolling seas, a soft, almost invisible traveler drifted on. It was the wind, gentle and wise, carrying stories in its breath. Every night, as the stars pricked the heavens, the wind would weave its way from one corner of the earth to another, whispering tales to those who listened. On this particular night, the wind's voice was softer than usual, like the brush of silk against skin. It began its journey in the great African savanna, where the grass swayed like golden waves beneath the moonlight. A young lion cub named Lumo lay wide awake beside his sleeping mother. His little heart beat fast, not with fear, but with excitement. Lumo knew the wind was coming. He had heard it the night before, and the night before that, telling tales of faraway mountains and shining rivers. "Wind," he whispered into the cool night, "what story will you bring me tonight?" The wind swirled around him, tickling his ears. "Tonight, Lumo, I will tell you about the great elephant who painted the sky." And so, as Lumo's eyelids grew heavy, the wind spoke of a mighty elephant who, long ago, dipped her trunk into pools of sunset colors and painted the evening sky so the world would never grow tired of nightfall. Lumo's breathing slowed, and before the wind had finished, the little lion cub was asleep, dreaming of colors spilling across the heavens. The wind traveled on, crossing deserts where the sand shimmered in moonlight like scattered gems. It moved swiftly toward the icy lands of the north, where the snow lay deep and undisturbed. Here, in a burrow beneath the frost, a little Arctic hare named Kira shivered, waiting. She had heard from her owl friend that the wind carried stories warmer than any blanket. "Wind," she called softly, her breath a puff of white in the cold air. "Tell me something bright." The wind coiled gently around her, warming her with its embrace. "Kira, I will tell you of the Firefly King who lit up the darkest night." The wind spun the tale of a time when the world was plunged into shadow, and a small firefly, no bigger than a snowflake, gathered every spark he could find to create a lantern so bright it guided lost creatures home. Kira listened with eyes wide until the story ended, and she curled into her nest with dreams glowing softly in her heart. Next, the wind glided over seas shimmering under moonlight, its voice mingling with the rhythm of the waves. In the middle of the great ocean, on a tiny green island, a parrot named Rio perched in a palm tree. He was not yet asleep. Instead, he swayed on his branch, eager for the wind's arrival. "Wind," he called cheerfully, "have you got a story for me?" The wind rustled the palm fronds and chuckled. "For you, Rio, I will tell of the mermaid and the singing shell." It told him of a mermaid who once found a shell so magical that every song it sang could calm the fiercest storms. But one day, the shell was lost to the ocean's depths, and the mermaid braved countless dangers to bring its music back to the surface. By the end of the tale, Rio's head drooped, his feathers ruffled in sleep, as if the mermaid's lullaby had reached him through the wind's words. From island to island, forest to forest, the wind continued its journey. In an old European meadow, a hedgehog listened to a story of a moonbeam who learned to dance. In the Australian outback, a kangaroo Joey heard of the rainbow that stitched two worlds together. In the heart of a deep jungle, a leopard cub was told of the river that could remember dreams. The wind never forgot a listener. It always knew who was waiting, whose heart needed a spark of wonder, or whose night was too heavy with silence. Its stories were not just words, they were seeds of dreams, planted in the stillness before dawn. But tonight, the wind had one more place to visit before the first blush of sunrise touched the horizon. Across valleys and over mountains, it reached a little farmhouse in the countryside. Inside, a young girl named Alara lay awake, her window cracked open just enough to let the night in. She had been waiting all week, hoping the whispers she'd heard on the breeze were real. The wind slipped inside, brushing against her cheek. "You have been listening for me, haven't you?" Ilara smiled into the darkness. "Yes, will you tell me a story?" The wind swirled around her hair, carrying the faint scent of salt from the ocean, the sharp coolness of the mountains, and the sweetness of flowers from distant fields. "Tonight, Alara, I will tell you a story about you." "Me?" she asked, sitting up in surprise. "Yes," the wind replied, "for you are part of my journey." And so the wind began to weave a tale, a story about a girl who could hear the voices hidden in the air. A girl who listened so closely that she could catch the sound of leaves gossiping, waves humming lullabies, and stars giggling in the sky. The girl's gift was rare, and the wind told her that one day she would be the keeper of stories, gathering them in her heart and passing them on to others, so no tale would ever be lost. By the time the story ended, Ilara's eyes had grown heavy, and the wind's voice had softened to a tender sigh. "Sleep now," it whispered. "I will come again." As dawn approached, the wind slipped away from the farmhouse and danced toward the edge of the waking world. It carried with it the laughter of parrots, the warmth of a hare's sigh, the drowsy purr of a lion cub, and the gentle heartbeat of a girl dreaming of her own destiny. The wind knew it would return the next night, and the next, and for as long as there were ears to hear and hearts to dream. And if you ever find yourself awake in the quiet dark, listening to the hush between the rustle of leaves or the faint hum between the waves, perhaps you'll hear it too, the whispers of the wind, carrying stories across the sleeping earth, weaving dreams into the hearts of all who believe.